Today we are going to talk about why never say we are a family. And I'm going to bring to you a psychological and neuroscience perspective to why that phrase can actually be costing you a lot more than you think. So we are going to start with looking at how does a core wound, where in our brains does that get recorded? Then also we are going to look at the 6 core wounds and how does a we are family culture in a way ride on those. And then we will look at, so what is it that high impact leaders actually do different? And then at the end, what I'm going to share with you is a toolbox again called Are We Family Mini Survey. So stay until the end so you can see as well how that works. Shortly about me, I am Zora. I'm originally from Finland, lived in Switzerland for over 20 years, also done HR for over 20 years. So most recently with Apple for 9 and other companies like Ericsson, Deloitte and IKEA. I use evidence-based methods because I am by education a psychologist. That's why I also talk a lot about neuroscience. And then I do help executives to develop and cultures as well. So I create journeys for both. But you didn't come to listen to about me, so let's kick it in. So brain science of a core wound, and wherever you are joining me in from, feel free to ask me questions. I understand this is perhaps a topic that is quite a sensitive one because I know there are a lot of good intention behind saying we are a family. We aim to actually, or leaders aim to create a belonging, a closeness, a sense of unity. But family and the word family is very emotionally loaded and often trauma loaded. So that is where we are going to look into first, what's the brain science of core wounds that happen in our early childhood and often in the family setting. All right. Let's start with this. So if we look at kind of the psychological concept of a core wound, it's basically an early emotional pattern that kind of hijacked you. It's not a weakness, but it's a wiring. It's how our brain perceived up to the age of between 7 to 10. That's kind of where a lot of these fundamental questions are being asked, and we are trying to find answers. How are we safe in this world, and do we matter? And whatever responses we get and how the world reacts to us then answers to those questions. And our brain is not looking at it as this is a kind of a logical thought. Our brain is looking at it as a kind of a neural default. So we might be reading a parent silence in a different way than we would read it now that we are our parents ourselves. So, but it grains into our mind as a neural default, not a logical conscious thought. And what also it creates is a kind of reaction. So whatever a child experiences as a pain, it does not create a narrative, but it creates first a reaction. So if a parent goes silent, the reaction could be, well, I'm not loved or I'm not wanted. The narrative is not, I am my mother or father has an issue or is busy, but there's a reaction, kind of like an operating system that is being built and wired to us early on. Or if we receive inconsistent love or affection or conditional one, we might learn there's a wiring and reaction to try to seek it. you might start to kind of connect this to relationships as well. And absolutely, this plays out not only in employment, but also in our ways what kind of relationships do we seek as well? What is familiar for us as well? And what is almost the wound that those relationships try to cover? And then what is important to remember is that unless we start to kind of rewire these and understand where they come from, they will eventually kind of hijack our adulthood. So here we go. Core wounds are unfinished stories that our body keeps on telling us. Remember that wiring, that operating system, it's really a reaction. It's not something that you decide to jump in and decide, okay, I'm going to react because in my childhood I felt neglected. So therefore, no, it's a reaction. It's how your brain is wired. And until you name them and tame them, they will lead the way you lead as well your team. Now, so let's imagine you have that operating system. That pain, that operating system becomes your filter because you move around the world trying to prove yourself in a way right, hopefully wrong, that finally somebody loves you, you don't experience rejection, or you are not neglected. But you are hypersensitive for all those signs that prove you, yes, here's another moment of rejection, here's another moment of neglect or shame, whatever that wound is. So your brain is hyperwired and filtering anything, and it's almost like a confirmation bias as well. It almost whatever you see then confirms to you that yes, I am not loved, I am not enough, I am not appreciated or seen, my voice does not matter. See how this is starting to accumulate unless we kind of tackle it at some point in life. And life gets busy. We get studies, we meet boyfriends, girlfriends, we build families. And many of us don't really have time to, at any point, reset this. And many of us don't even almost remember what happened. But there's a polyvagal theory as well about that the body keeps the score. Our bodies remember. So if you react to somebody's anger almost like you did when you were a child, that's also your bodily reaction. And even if you might not remember how those situations were, and you might say, but I can't remember much, but still, anytime somebody raises their voice, I go all kind of like in a peanut size. That's where your body keeps the score. And our coping mechanism and our coping style becomes our leadership style, unfortunately, unless we are aware of it. So let's imagine you've experienced an environment of shame where you felt that, well, I'm not enough, or I'm maybe too much. If you don't take the time to understand it, name it, tame it, change it, your leadership style might be repeating it, and maybe in a way where you might shame others instead. So that is the brain science, how very quickly in our childhood we get wired, the core wounds get wired, and they continue playing throughout our lives. And they have a role in our lives. Let me quickly check. Hello, Roslyn from UK. Wonderful. Glad you took the time to join. You have a comment. Standing up for positivism, kindness, empathy, and caring is seldom embraced by individuals. Absolutely, that is true. Kind of if you internalize the past hurts and negative narratives, and you haven't done kind of the work afterwards to understand where did they come from, and do these narratives still serve me? And the question is, do they serve me privately in the relationships that I build? Do they serve me in the profession and employment and in my leadership? So I think that kind of like a resetting those narratives is really, really, really key, but often overlooked because it's hard. Our brain got wired then, and our brain is lazy. So it's really looking forward to kind of play that old loop rather than take all the trouble and effort to change it. Then let's move into where this gets tricky with the we are family type of a approach. So in psychology, we recognize there are different kind of core wounds that we have developed as children. I'm a mother of 2 teenagers, and who knows what kind of core wounds I have generated in them. We all know it's hard to create that kind of a picture perfect environment for our children. We can only be aware of their struggles and our own, so we don't pass it over. And these are the 6 core wounds that we can quickly go here through. One is around rejection. If you felt early on that you were not wanted within the kind of family caretaker setting you were living in, or abandonment, I will always be left. I was left alone. Betrayal, where you feel that the people who were supposed to take care of you betrayed your trust and didn't. Shame, where there's a lot of shaming involved early on. There's this kind of feeling of brokenness. There's something wrong in me. Injustice, where there's a feeling like, well, there's constant injustice through my parents. They maybe favor somebody in the family more than myself. Or the neglect, where you kind of learn to, in a way, perform to get the love. I don't matter unless I perform or do something. And on the right-hand side, you have some examples there. What you do to cope. Maybe it's people-pleasing for those who have felt rejection. Maybe it's clinginess for those who felt abandonment. Maybe in their current, not only employments, but relationships. You can see them cling on because they feel like, I don't know how to let go, and I don't want to be left either. Or micromanagement or hypercontrol. For those who felt betrayed because they feel I cannot trust anyone but myself, so better control and micromanage everything. Or this kind of perfectionism or imposter syndrome for those who felt early on that something's wrong with me, so I better perfect everything I do, and so on. But these are the core wounds that are born in the early setting, from the early connections and caretakers that we have interacted with. We have a question. Our past is a story. When we add it, become history. HR, it becomes history, yes, where we can share and get positive action, build in new habits and action. I like that. I really like that. And how many times do we actually put the HI in front of the story and really recognize what is the story we've been telling us for so long? And is it time to kind of let go of that story and not repeat it? Really like that. You also mentioned culture leads in these wounds. Ooh, yes, and that's where we are coming right now with the we are family culture. And before we go there, like I said, many people aim good with this, and especially small teams or even family businesses. Yes, they say we are family, and there's a good intention to create that kind of closeness. And many small companies can't even almost operate without that tightness that they have. But when you enter big companies or growing companies, that's for me a big red flag, because that belonging, you're not creating belonging. You might be kind of reenacting a trauma that a person has had in their childhood, and you might be kind of riding on it instead of helping to kind of put it aside and enter a more professional setting. So the workplace can't fix your wound. It's your work. It's the work every one of us has to do. But your leadership can stop recreating it. That's my point. Okay, let's bring in a we are family culture. And like I said, it's not often intentional. Sometimes it is, and that's then a more of a toxic culture, but it's not always intentional. So a family culture kind of, in a way, rides on some of these core wounds. So if there's a rejection, a deep-seated rejection, the person has felt, I'm not wanted, a family culture will say, but we want you. Until we don't, until, you know what, as in a family, there are some dynamics that happen, but we want you. They will fuel with the positive intent, the emotion, but we want you. Or abandonment, I'll be always left. They will fuel it with, well, we are always here until you try to leave. Because in a family culture, try to leave a company with a family culture, and you become quickly the person who is disloyal and have betrayed the company, the people around you, instead of people celebrating for you and saying, great, you have your new chapter ahead. Betrayal. So when you are in a place where you never trusted anyone, a family culture might be so charismatic, and often you have charismatic leaders or owners there who almost say, well, you can trust us as long as you don't question us. So it becomes this kind of like a blind trust, where a person who has never been able to trust anyone is then drawn to. Shame, somebody coming from the place of, ooh, there's something wrong with me. Well, you are perfect until you become issue, because we like to keep this kind of a fake harmony and fake perfection here. So just let's keep the vibe. Injustice. And there is this kind of my voice doesn't matter, and what I say is different than others. And here is more in a family culture, is your voice matters until you go against ours. It's almost like this obedience. And the last one is the neglect. You are enough until you aren't, because we don't really have clear boundaries on where you should move. So how I'm trying to unfold is to help you see the linkage from the core wounds to some of these kind of ways of living in a very fluid family environment, which is not malintended or in a way kind of bad intended, but still it lacks clarity for the people, and it ends up just fueling those core wounds in them. So if we look here, family cultures are often recognized by having these unspoken rules and roles. Somebody is the golden child, and there's some odd rules and processes that you don't know, but you know when something is off, but you cannot really pinpoint it, but you know something is off. The second one is guilting people to stay. So for those who fear abandonment, that is for them is even harder to leave, because now some people actually want me, they need me here. And that is almost riding with their experience of abandonment in the past and making them stay, even though actually for them probably it would be better to leave. This don't question us. You can trust us. So those who have experienced the betrayal then enter this kind of like a environment where we are all in it together. You know what? Don't question us. Just move along. And that is a way family cultures and in a normal family, your parents, you would not. In a kind of typical setting of a family, you might have somebody who says, don't question us, you are part of it, we are in it together. Or fake harmony. Those who are fueled by shame will then also be very, very adaptable to an environment of fake harmony. Well, let's just keep the vibe. Let's pretend we are all happy and don't become the issue. Or your voice matters until you go against ours. So there is this kind of acceptance of dysfunction in the family cultures that, well, you know what? Your father is just the way he is, or your mother is, or your brother is just the way he is. Instead of saying, you know what, we hold everyone accountable here. And you are not enough. The blurred boundaries in the family culture, where, you know what, we don't do job descriptions. Everybody just kind of mind reads each other expectations and kind of fluidity. That's where we start to reenact the kind of childhood wounds instead of being in a high impact environment where we acknowledge that we all have our little baggage that we carry, but we don't reenact and re-enable those to take place. Let's have a look into how high impact leaders then switch it. How do they flip the script in such a way that they can create belonging and they don't re-trigger these wounds? So instead of that secrecy, instead of generating rejection or a sense of, well, there are inner circles and special childs in here, they fuel transparency. They will set explicit rules and roles. There's no hidden kind of processes, but really these are explicit ones. So you are not rejected based on some confusing dynamics. You are there accepted as you are, as part of a professional team that has explicit rules and roles. There's no secrecy, which is often behind that rejection. You don't really know why you got rejected. There's transparency. The second one is respect. And those who felt abandonment perhaps in the past and now are then clinging into a work environment where actually they should let go of. There is a respect from the first to the last day and not guilt tripping people to stay. The third one is the openness. So those who have experienced the betrayal and lack of trust, instead of fueling their kind of obedience, they enter an environment that is open. And trust is built not by obedience, but open dialogue. The fourth one is their conflict that high impact leaders do. So instead of creating this fake harmony and fueling the shame nicely to make people be quiet and not become the problem, high impact leaders look at conflict as in, this is our opportunity to solve and repair and create really an anti-fragile team instead of running on a fake fumes, fake harmony. So there's no shaming to protect the vibe. There's no shaming if somebody actually calls out a topic and says, this is an issue we need to tackle. And the two last one, fairness. Make all voices heard. So those who have come out of an injustice environment or having that wound, they, under a high impact leader, experience all voices are heard. Whereas in a family environment, there might have still been a level of favoritism where just specific voices are heard, as long as they don't go against whoever has the power. And the last one is the boundaries versus mind reading. A high impact leader looks at respecting boundaries and consent. There is no expectation of mind reading or this kind of over-functioning, which is typical for somebody who has this kind of experience of neglect, and they try to they try to do more and more and more in order to kind of be accepted and gain belonging. A high impact leader helps to set boundaries and respects the consent of people. Now, what can you do to kind of know if you or you are working or leading with the "Are we a family" or "We are a family" way? Here we go. A mini survey that I'm going to share with you. Very simple, and this is not a test, but this is kind of starting to ask yourself questions in terms of what are the ways that we are kind of approaching these 6 wounds, 6 core wounds. And in this overview, and I will put this deck in the lounge later on, in this overview, what you will see is 3 questions per wound. And the 2 first ones have a bit of a family, we are family flavor. So if you find yourself saying, "Ooh, we actually do that," then you might think, okay, well, what can we do to change that? And the last one with the little green tick is then the one who is more in a high impact leader culture. So it's a more of an indicator of a high impact leader than we are family leader. And here you have those 3 and also I've put here the other 3. So altogether you have these questions. And what if you are really, really brave? This is the one for the braves. Here we go. If you're really brave, you pull these questions and ask them to your team and say, you know what, let's go these through. Maybe you do it one-on-one, or if your team is open to talk openly, you do it as a team exercise. If you have fake harmony, don't do this as a kind of like a team exercise, because you will just hear all what you need. But if you are in a place where your team speaks up, even when it's uncomfortable, then you can do it as a team activity as well. Here is a psychological safety is a key to trust. Absolutely. And unfortunately, often the family environments, or we are family cultures, kind of misinterpret psychological safety with loyalty and kind of entitlement, which is very, very different. And psychological safety is about feeling that you belong and that you trust to speak up. Whereas often in a we are family environment, eventually you might feel that you belong, but you start to eventually watch out how much can you trust or speak up in those environments. And eventually you might say, you know what, let me just fit in here, which is then the opposite of the belonging. Where can you find this? In my lounge. So go. I will put it up there afterwards, so you can find the deck there and the survey if you want to use it. And next week we have another session like this coming up. So hope you can join me also next week. If you have still any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. But if not, then we have a timely landing of our Friday session. Thank you so much for joining me. And I hope this helped you to understand why you should not say we are a family. I'm sure that there are other great ways that you can generate belonging and trust within your team than that. There's a question. Still, in such environment, people are strategically lobbying, such as like in a football team. Then say, nice to see you as well. Yes. Remember, these are also patterns that people have learned to survive. So this kind of environment of how do you create dynamics that strategically lobby people to join it versus then actually let people to lead it as well, and not fuel that abandonment, or not fuel that shame in you, but actually enable you to make choices for yourself. Thank you, everyone. And I will answer some of your questions as well in the chat. So see you next Friday.